Quick question. Have you noticed that Bill Gates always evades certain questions about vaccines? Gates has spoken quite a few times about vaccines in this pandemic, and one of the things that have stirred public opinion is the so-called microchips or whatever. Let's see what happens with his body language when he addresses these conspiracies about him. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I am the body language guy, and I want to help you discover what is beyond words. In this video, you will learn how to spot 3 facial expressions that reveal true emotions, how to tell when someone evades a question, and one powerful tip that you can use to press for an answer. Bill Gates was interviewed by Norah O'Donnell addressing the conspiracy theories about the vaccines having microchips to track people. For this analysis, I used proprietary AI software to analyze Gates' facial expressions and voice tone. But before we begin, I'm sure you can help me supporting my channel, and all you have to do is like this video, hit the subscribe button, and share it with anyone you know that wants to learn body language secrets. One of the most striking features of this video is the way Gates has always a slight smile on his face. And as in every body language analysis, it's important to set a baseline, or what is the usual facial expression of someone.
An epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths.
As you can see in this video from 2017, he's talking about the same subject, pandemics, but he remains serious when talking about it. By the way, it's interesting that he raises his left shoulder twice, reinforcing the notion that he has an emotional reaction about the subject.
There was a simulation called Dark Winter that didn't come out very well, i.e. smallpox scored 1 and humanity scored 0.
Also, why does he smile when he talks about this pandemic simulation where smallpox scored 1 and humanity scored 0? You start to notice that the shrug is something he does when he is excited about a subject, combined with the fact that he smiles every now and then when talking about epidemics. Now, so far we cannot tell if he's happy about epidemics happening or about discussing the topic of epidemics. It's a very important distinction, and for example, that's why people find criminal movies and series so popular. It's because the topic is fascinating, not because they want to become one. Well, I guess. But how can we tell if someone is not happy about the topic of epidemics, but epidemics becoming a reality? We compare these body language signals to his answers to the questions about the microchip conspiracy.
Why wasn't there a federal testing plan? Why aren't we getting the tests out to low income? Some of which are because we didn't understand the virus very well.
All along the video, you notice that Gates lacks nonverbal vocabulary because he usually does the same hand gestures no matter what he's saying. He displays a very controlled personality because his right hand gestures are much more open and higher than his left hand gestures. The left hand is usually more emotional than the right hand.
Didn't have the leadership message there. So yes, we have a lot of regrets.
When he talks about the US not having the leadership message for mask compliance, he lowers his gaze. Even as he's pointing responsibility on the US government, he's not totally confident about it.
Their leadership communicated with a clear voice.
It's totally different when he talks about Europe's leadership. Notice the way he says the word.
Should reduce the death rate and, eventually, by the end of next year, get us out of this terrible situation.
Again, he raises his right hand when saying reduce death rate. And it looks really suspicious, but it's just a lack of nonverbal vocabulary. But that's a problem when you don't say with your body the same things you say with your words. Immediately after, he laughs a bit. Those are the things that we don't get about Gates, that in many occasions his emotional expressions are off. It's similar of my analysis of Prince Andrew's interview that you can check out here. When O'Donnell mentions the mortality rate, infections skyrocketing, hospitalizations, He does a sturgeon face that usually means that you acknowledge something. But as he holds the expressions, we see what seems a suppressed smile again. Those emotional contradictions cast a lot of doubt about his motives or what is he thinking at that point. Like when he hears the sentence, "Where is that discussion coming from?" regarding the reopening of schools, he smiles broadly. There's no reason to do that at the time. It makes for a good case of not projecting emotions in a way that you expect. And that must be why so many people believe that Bill Gates has Asperger's, but there's nothing official about that. That's one of the reasons why when you analyze people like Greta Thunberg, supposedly diagnosed with Asperger's, you need to use a different set of behavioral clues other than facial expressions. And that's why I always stress that any body language analysis must include verbal expression, voice tone, and body movement. But luckily, now we can get a little help from technology to make a statistical analysis of any person's facial expressions, the emotions they project with their faces, and whether or not it is congruent with what they are saying. We did a couple steps first, namely removing the glasses, extracting a 3D model of the subject's face, and make sure the software can track expression points in a visualized 3-dimensional space. So that's how we can analyze a whole range of expressions and how they distribute along the timeline, in this case the whole interview. This technology can also be used for your business, so if you want to find out more, there's a link in the description. For Gates, you spot certain stress points like the very interesting question: are these vaccines safe?
So, are these vaccines safe?
The question is critical, and even O'Donnell hesitates for a split second while asking.
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators.
And that's where Gates shows a rapid succession not only of facial emotions but stress gestures when touching his face. If you saw the whole interview, you'll notice that he almost never touches his face, and here he does it a couple times. Now, how many times do you think he's been asked that question? I'm sure that quite a few. So it's normal that he could have been waiting for it. But even so, he reacts in a very emotional way. You can tell how much the topic affects him when he needs to stand for something he knows he has no control over. He has a very hard time answering the question.
The side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for
and he just adds that the symptoms are not super severe and it didn't cause permanent problems. But he lowers his voice when saying the word problems. He's not sure.
Who's going to get the vaccine first?
To the question, who's going to get the vaccine first? He pauses for a moment and closes his eyes for almost a second. He doesn't like to hear that question, no matter how many times it's asked. If they are currently talking about 7 billion vaccines that need at least 2 doses, we're facing a humongous project that is gonna take several months just to produce and administer the doses globally. But we don't know the reasons behind that emotional reaction. We don't know if he is worried about the long time it's going to take, or if it would be fair that some countries get the vaccines before others. I'd love to read your opinion in the comments.
To be clear, do you want a vaccine so that you can implant microchips into people?
No, there's no connection between any of these vaccines and any tracking type thing at all. I don't know where that came from.
Well, the moment of truth is when O'Donnell asks about the conspiracy that links the vaccine to a tracking system. In this case, he answers calm and collected. He was expecting the question, and he answers accordingly. But then, O'Donnell applies a version of the Columbo questioning technique and asks again, why do you think so many people believe this conspiracy to be true? How did it become so popular? Gates' answer is clear, I don't know.
I don't know.
But the inflection of the answer is like a question.
I don't know.
I don't know. He shows insecurity and proceeds to talk about the efforts of Dr. Fauci and himself and their values. He tries to justify his actions, but the truth is that he knows exactly why this conspiracy started in the first place. And for that, we should go to Reuters' page where the conspiracy is debunked. Apparently, it's more about a digital certificate that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were developing. And here comes the strange part. There's a paragraph that says, IBM describes a digital certificate as an electronic document used to identify an individual and associate the identity with a public key. Like a driver's license or a passport, it provides proof of a person's identity. But that link to IBM does not exist. And if you try to search it inside archive.org, all snapshots are down. That's really odd. In that same page, we get a link to Rice University's webpage, an article from December 2019 where it describes a technology to administer a vaccine and leave an invisible digital tattoo with the vaccine's information. Kevin McHugh, the scientist behind the breakthrough, addresses that he was actually contacted by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They came to us and said, we have a real problem knowing who's vaccinated. So our idea was to put the record in the person. And I must say, this blew my mind. Imagine that you don't need any paper records. You just scan the person and know which vaccines they got. That way you make sure no one gets double vaccinated. That is truly amazing. But don't you think it would be better to say they were looking for a solution to this problem and that's where the conspiracy took off? Makes you wonder why they don't mention any of this technology anymore. Must be because besides being an amazing breakthrough, it also poses serious ethical issues. Because let's suppose that digital tattoo has no personal records, only has information about the vaccine. Well, there are lots of vaccines that have 2 or 3 doses, so it's imperative that the information includes dates. And for a massive vaccination process, there's not gonna be a single company manufacturing them, so you will also have the company name on it. And just to be sure, there should be a serial number that tracks the shot all the way to the facility it was created in case something goes wrong with a certain batch of vaccines. Remember, we're talking about a system that doesn't need any paper or digital records. So whether you want it or not, you will be adding some sort of serial number to the person. No, it's not a microchip, but if the pattern could be read with a customized smartphone, then you can track that unique serial number with infrared scanners. He can't say he doesn't know where the conspiracy came from. He just doesn't want to explain all this. And the powerful tip you can use to press for an answer is, after your question, add the words, "It's a simple question." An example, what happened to the digital tattoo research of Rice University? It's a simple question. When you say, "It's a simple question," you are forcing them to give a simple answer. And if they don't have a simple answer, it will show. Did you spot any other clues in the interview video? Don't forget to share them in the comments. And to make sure you don't miss any of my body language analysis, like this video and hit that subscribe button.